Right, lesson 1 in Colts. We are looking at compliance techniques, and it's a short unit. We're just going to look at one compliance technique. There's a second one covered in manipulation, foot in the door. We're going to cover the authority principle because Colts are typically led by an authoritative figure. Like every unit, I like to start with the key terms traffic lights. And the crossword puzzle, I always remind the students, hey, you're not expected to know this stuff now, but by the end of the unit you should. Now, full disclosure, I knew nothing about Heaven's Gate before I wrote this chapter, or about Jonestown really, or much about Colts. It wasn't really a thing that interests me. There's one really good I think it's 3-episode series I put in the unit plan, The Cult of Colts, if you're interested in watching it. Full disclosure, this unit's pretty loosely linked to Colts. It's just a bit of a sexy hook. I couldn't imagine students may write about Colts in the exam, but kind of not really. It's a little bit like criminology. A lot of it, we're not really actually talking about criminology, we're just talking about aggression. Same thing with Colts. Anyway, there's a 10-minute video. If that's a little bit too long, you could watch the short trailer and just give your own explanation. Now, a little note here. I need to be a bit careful with inserting images I don't have copyrights for. And so I'm increasingly using these insert image notes for you as a teacher, because if you're just showing it in your class, you can be a little bit, you can have better images in your slideshow than what I would provide. So that's what you're going to see there. Just a little think pair share. Increasingly I'm using think pair shares for hooks. And saying, hey, why do you think this might happen? Well, today we're going to find out. And so this is the second question. Another warning, hey, we're talking about mass suicide. And in my course, I treat kids bounce, they're fine. I don't shy away from tricky topics. But this might be something that you need to consider if that doesn't feel comfortable with you. Anyway, alright, so after the think pair share, I just thought, well, you know what, the best thing is actually read that first page of compliance techniques, and then there's some questions in the workbook. I never use AI for my lesson plans or any of my writing in my textbook. I do use it for images. Both of those are AI generated images. I find it really good for that, because it's quite hard to get specific images. Anyway, a bit of chalk and talk. Great Bickman field experiment. Do students need to know the studies? No, but this is a good example of where a really simple field experiment, which is pretty straightforward to remember, easy to show the authority principle for compliance techniques in the SAQ, could allow them to explain it in a better way than a real life example. Because I could imagine a student trying to explain a real life example, maybe using dough from the Applewhite from the Colt. It'd be pretty tricky. They'd have to do a little bit of research and know specifically, what were they getting people to comply with, and I worry it might be a little bit vague in general, whereas studies give us something specific to write about. So you're just giving them options. Good replication of the Milgram experiment. I find it, when there are good videos that show a study, it's easier than chalk and talking. That said, I've got the chalk and talk slides here if you like. Interesting item, Milgram's experiment, quote unquote. The first variation is not actually an experiment, I don't think. What's the independent variable? Right? Is it the voltage? Is it say yes? Maybe. But anyway, it's a simple variation of the plain clothes. It took me ages to find the original statistics on that because it's buried in his book, not a study. 22% it goes down to when they wear plain clothes. So this gives us something nice to compare and say, look, it's the symbol of scientific authority. Could be why people kept pushing the buzzer. Curious to get your feedback on this template I'm using for the workbook notes. Yeah. Alright, homework. The reflection in the unit plan as well. Increasingly I'm using this for homework, because I find if you do something like, exit tickets are usually a little bit of formative assessment, but we've got exit tickets in our workbook notes to check in with their understanding here. This is our formative assessment, so I think signing a little bit of homework could be a better use of this reflection part of the lesson plan. Anyway, this is our first introduction: compliance techniques, authority principle, and we get into cults. Pretty cool way to start the unit, I think.